College football is over, the NFL is winding down, and as we turn our attention to the ice and hardwood until Sunday, January 22nd, we are slashing NBA, college basketball, and NHL season passes from $4.59 all the way down to $2.99 with no coupon needed. This special price locks in your favorite handicappers in the sport of your choice through the championship for pennies on the dollar versus buying daily packages. And since the price will remain $2.99 through midnight on January 22nd, the earlier you buy, the more days you get included at no additional cost. How much are you saving? College basketball comes to just $3.55 per day through March Madness, and the NBA and NHL discounts come out to just under $60 per month to lock in your favorite handicapper through the finals or Stanley Cup. Go to your favorite handicappers page at WagerTalk and or Sports Memo and lock in your sports through the championship for only $2.99 each. If you want to combine handicappers or multiple sports, email us and we can work out an even more significant discount for you.
Welcome in to Prop It Up. I am your host, Matt Joseph, sportsmemo.com. Andy Lang is out due to a personal matter, so it's just me and my fellow prop master. You can find his stuff over at WagerTalk.com. Joining me, as always, is Andrew McInnes. Andrew, how's it going on a lovely Friday?
Yeah, it's great to be here, Matt. Unfortunately, it's not a lovely Friday here in the north, here in Canada. I'm just watching the snow fall down, just watching the roads look miserable out there. So it's a great day to stay in, prepare, and get ready for a weekend full of football, which I'm excited about. There's just, we love betting on props, and I know some people would say that every game is just, the same. I don't agree, man. Betting on props in the NFL in the playoffs is just more fun. And it was great last week, and I can't wait for tomorrow.
Yeah, so coming up on the show today, we're going to go dive into all four of the games this weekend, the two on Saturday, the two on Sunday. We'll take a look at the props that we talked about last week, the highest passer, highest rusher, highest receiver. Andrew's got some UFC stuff that we're going to go over, and certainly I've got the best bet for this evening. But before we get to any of that stuff, Andrew, it is a Friday, full weekend ahead. Tell everybody what they can find on your page over at WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, a lot of time when Andy asked me, I'm still kind of figuring some things out, but I'm pretty prepared here this week going into the weekend. I've got a 5% play in NFL. I cashed my first 5% prop bet in NFL last week. Got a 5% UFC play going tomorrow night on a really, really massive card. And then, of course, Saturday. They're always a huge, huge day in the NHL. So looking forward to a great, great weekend. And I have a promo code WEEK69 that will get people a week of all my plays across all sports for $69. So can't wait for the weekend, and hopefully it's a great one.
Yeah, certainly. And don't forget Andy over at WagerTalk.com. He's got a 5% NFL play. He's got a 5% UFC play. And when he puts a 5 on something, he means business and he means profit. So you can make sure to check him out at WagerTalk.com. I'm over at SportsMemo.com. Obviously, big college basketball weekend coming up. We're taking the day off today because it's a small card. But, of course, I put up my Eagles-Giants prop pack for tomorrow, and then we'll get to work on the Sunday stuff as well. You can find me over at sportsmemo.com. All right, Andrew, so we've got 4 games, and obviously with just the two of us, we can go a little bit more in depth. The first game of the weekend is tomorrow around 4:30 or so Eastern time. You've got the Jaguars and the Chiefs. Couple of things real quick to consider here, and love to get your thoughts on this. Obviously, this is a rematch of a game we saw earlier in the season. How much are you looking at that? And B, there is the just small chance of some snow, some rain, maybe just a wintry mix in this game. So, Andrew, when you take a look at this game, how much are you looking at the rematch, the first game, and how much are you giving even the smallest of considerations to potentially some wintry weather for this one?
I think that I care a little bit more about the results from the previous meeting than I do about the weather here in this one. I just think that the way these teams are going to play, unless it just becomes an absolute catastrophe and it's just horrible weather out there, which I don't think it's set to be that bad. But I think the game script will go on as it was going to, no matter what the weather was going to be. But yeah, Matt, I do read into what the stats were of the last meeting, which prop bets cash, which guys went over, which guys went under. I don't think you should just base, prop plays solely off that, of course, but I think you definitely have to. You have to look at which receivers were successful, who was getting targeted, and realistically taking a look at. I'll go back to you in a second, but taking a look at some of the numbers here. It looks like Trevor Lawrence is a guy that's going to have to be passing the ball quite a bit, Matt. So there's a lot of things that we look at from past meetings that you kind of find hard to believe that they're going to be able to change. So some things I think stay the same in certain matchups. Of course, some things can be changed with looking at film or talking things over. But I'm sure you're with me that sometimes, especially in a matchup like this with the point spread like this that we have, it's expected to be pretty wide open. That you kind of do want to look at some of the past history stuff.
Yeah, and certainly Trevor Lawrence has been better, and obviously, Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. There will be some adjustments here. You've got the Chiefs fresh off a week off. You've got the Jaguars on the road after an emotional game, and maybe you want to take advantage of the Chiefs early. And I'll say this: I was the $2 capper on Tuesday, and I gave out the Chiefs first half team total over. It was 14.5 when I gave it out. Went up 2 points over that day, so we took it down because obviously it went past some key numbers and things like that. But a lot of people expecting a fast start for the Chiefs here. So Andrew, let's isolate some players here. Is there somebody you're looking at more than others when it comes to players in this game?
Yeah, well, let's start with first of all, Jerick McKinnon has been a guy that has been just printing money for me. He scored 6 straight touchdowns. This is a game that I do expect to see some points in. We've got two teams that with a lot of talent out there. I think we're going to see a pretty heavy pace of this one. I wouldn't say really long drives by any means, lots of big plays. But I think McKinnon is worth a look to score a touchdown. And he's somebody that's constantly been looked at. But having said that, I do think we're going to see some touchdowns through the air from Mahomes, and you can get over 2.5 passing touchdowns at around even money. And you just take a look at the talent that he has out there on his team, how many weapons that they have. I want to just take a second to look back at when Tyreek Hill left this team and was no longer with them, and people wondered kind of what the offense was going to be like. And guys, out there, I've been saying on radio shows all week, and this is a team that I've looked at for yards more than receptions as far as the Chiefs are concerned, because they actually have so many guys that get involved in their offense that if you're taking receptions with them, your guy could have 65 yards and maybe only 2-3 receptions, and you lose your receptions prop. I mean, this is a team that is very widely spread out. But I hate to point out the obvious, Matt, but I think it's going to be a great week for Travis Kelce. I mean, his number obviously dictates it, but where do teams like to go against teams with rather poor secondaries and poor pass defense? Well, that's up the middle, and Travis Kelce is going to do his thing. I think he's going to do a lot of damage against this Jags defense. They struggle through the air with their defense, and there's just too many weapons and too many guys for them to try and contain. And I think that they're going to almost rather take that 10 to 15 yard pass than anything deep, deep, deep downfield. And so that sometimes might be better than than dealing with a huge play downfield from Mahomes. Because as I mean, Mahomes could be falling over and somehow he'll make a play out of something and throw it 65, 70 yards, which is just unbelievable to watch. But a guy I've been talking about all week, Matt, a couple things here for the Jags. Look, Christian Kirk's number was set at 64.5, right? And you take a look at all year, the numbers that he was able to surpass well over 100 a couple times, 90s and the 80s in some really big games for this Jags team. And I think that I like to look at props in games where the point spread is so lopsided like this. And obviously, I've asked people all week long, which game do you think we'll see the biggest blowout in? And everybody's telling me, oh, probably the Chiefs game, probably the Chiefs game, probably the Chiefs game. But guess what? Somebody has to be involved for the Jags. Somebody has to catch these balls. And I think it's going to be Kirk. I take a look at him and how he's the number one guy and he's the guy for this Jags team. And seeing a 64.5 number to me is just something that I had to look at. And also his longest catch, his longest reception, that's a prop that's cash for him in several games in a row now. I think it's definitely worth a look. And my 5% play last week, Matt, was on ETN over on rushing yards. I have a feeling that we might be looking towards the under with him this week, although they're going to try and run him into the ground potentially in the first half. I have a feeling that, once it gets later in the game, they're going to have to get away from him and pass the ball through the air. 40 pass attempts for the Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence in the last meeting between the Jags and the Chiefs. And I really don't see anything different happening in that one. A lot of times I used to look at completions during this regular season. These days, Matt, I'm more of a proponent of looking at pass attempts. It's crazy. You look at Tom Brady and Geno Smith, teams that guys that lost in their games, but just went well over their passing attempts. And you look at the score in those games, you can still make money on these teams that are expected to lose potentially by double digits. And I'll tell you what, as much as there's profit to be made on the Chiefs this weekend, there's certainly lots of things to look at as far as this Jags offense goes as well. And I'm looking at some guys down the depth chart as well, but I hate to just point out that number one guy, Matt, but I got to ask you, I mean, I saw 64.5, right, for Christian Kirk. And I said to myself, look, I know the Chiefs are set to have the ball a lot. I know the Chiefs are supposed to be the team that blows out the Jags, but that number seems a little bit low for the guy for the Jaguars. I don't know. I felt like that was a number that I couldn't pass up.
Well, yeah, and it's actually gone down to 62.5 now, or at least it has in DraftKings. And obviously, yardage drops and raises are always an eyebrow raiser. I like his receptions more, but see, it's funny because I took it over 5.5, and now over 5.5 is even money. So there's something that's saying that the people don't like Christian Kirk, even though Trent McDuffie, who is the new slot corner for the Chiefs, has been horrible the last couple weeks. So certainly that's something to kind of consider here when you look at the Jaguars and the Chiefs. All right, let's move on to game number 2. And game number 2 has its own intrigue for many reasons. Obviously, it's the third meeting between the two, although the second meeting, you could kind of throw everything out from the second meeting. The Eagles kind of played it half-assed. They just basically tried to win. They didn't give away a lot of things. They did enough to win. The Giants had all their backups in. So you kind of look back at that first meeting. But the other key thing here is, Andrew, we'll get your opinion in just a second. The Giants have been without Adoree Jackson, Xavier McKinney, and not Dexter Lawrence, one of the defensive linemen up front for that first meeting. So the Eagles are getting their first look at the full Giants defense, which is not a bad defense. It's their third straight road game in a row here, Andrew. So before I go on my diatribe on my thoughts on this game, what did you tell me what you think meeting 3 between the Eagles and the Giants?
Well, unlike a lot of people, I actually think this game could be relatively low scoring. Don't get me wrong, not like low scoring, but go under the total as far as that high total we're seeing there. I'm going to look at over 3.5 field goals in this game, Matt. This is a Giants team that was a popular bet for me with field goal betting. I looked at the longest field goal as well for them quite a bit during the regular season. And I think that we're going to see a heavy run game from this Giants team. But we talked about it last week. You and I both mentioned Barkley. And not just for him on the ground, but also receiving. I mean, the dink and dunk game, I think, is going to be what the Giants try and live off of. I'm not saying they don't have talent. I'm not saying they don't have receivers that can make plays, but I'm going to look at the under for Daniel Jones and his passing. I think even if they hang around and they're successful, they're going to have to run the ball. And I just think that the Eagles, one thing about them is that their defense has been slept on all year long, I think, Matt. Honestly, I mean, I want to look at some sack props. This is a team in the Eagles that I know you're a fan of them, so I got to go back to you here. Like, I think that their drives can be long. I think they want to protect Hurts, but also I don't think he'll be scared to get out there and run as well. I wouldn't be afraid to look at his rushing yard number. Your best bet that you're going to talk about at the end of the show is one that I really liked as well for a touchdown scorer. But when I look at this game, I think that we're going to see a lot of, defensive plays from the Eagles that shut down the offense for the Giants, which makes things really difficult for them and a lot of their prop bets, which is why I'd actually look towards a lot of unders for the Giants. I expect this game to be, seeing a lot of long possessions and long drives for the Eagles, which can really deteriorate this Giants team. So I want your thoughts on the field goal prop here, though. I like the over 3.5 field goals.
I don't like taking the 3.5 as much as I would consider the 1.5 for each of them. I just, if one guy has a really good game, I mean, that's the thing. The Eagles did kick 5 field goals last game not last game. Jake Elliott's kicked 5 field goals against the Giants this season. My one worry is Sirianni is a gambler at times. He does like to go for it in certain situations. Graham Gano is always good, but Andy's always talked about Graham Gano. So I usually lean more towards the individuals. But, I mean, you know what? Let me just say this. I like Jake Elliott's over 1.5 field goals. I was going to make it a client play, but I can't sit here and watch the game and root for field goals. So, like, it's one of those, like, conflicting things.
Yeah.
But I don't hate it. I'm more of the individual guy, and it also depends on the juices for the individual guy and the juice for over 3.5.
And that makes sense. I get it. You told me that before when I've asked you about field goal props. You've said that you mostly look towards the 1.5 and things like that. But, sometimes we do see them trade field goals, but sometimes you do see one team have to carry the load for the field goal prop in general. But do you agree with me? Do any of your props reflect kind of what I'm thinking here as far as, this Eagles defense just not getting that respect all season that I think it deserves? Everyone talks about their offense, but I think their defense is really great. And I think their offense, it has so many deep threats and they can throw downfield. But I have a feeling we could be watching that clock in the first quarter and we could see a 7-minute drive from this Eagles team.
Well, I mean, the worry is the Eagles, the first drive on defense, have been problematic. You go back to the Saints game when the Saints went on like a 9-minute drive the first time they touched the ball, and then the game before that, the Cowboys struck fast early. So I almost feel like there might be some value in the Giants to score first here. I'm trying to balance the fatalistic side of me and the normal side of me. I'll tell you this. Here's a bet that I kind of like on DraftKings. I'm looking right now. Daniel Jones is 5-1 to be the first person to have 20 rushing yards. It's probably not going to happen, but if Daniel Jones busts one of those rushes long, 5-1's not a terrible price there. The Eagles have struggled against mobile quarterbacks. Here's the irony here, Andrew. There have been 2 Giants quarterbacks to go over 40 yards rushing against the Eagles, and neither of them are Daniel Jones. Tyrod Taylor in mop-up relief in Game 1 and Davis Webb in Game 2. So they've had a little bit of an issue, but you would hope that this week they practice that sort of thing. So I kind of like the Daniel Jones rushing over if they don't, keep him in the pocket. They're going to call some plays for him. I'm looking right now. The over for his rushing yards is -130. And then, look, I mean, there's a certain way that I'm kind of planning out this game to go with regards to Jalen Hurts. Obviously, these are the props that I'm giving away, so I can't really necessarily give them out. But look, Andrew, I'm taking the Giants plus the points here. It's half protecting my heart. It's half thinking look what happened last week, Andrew. You just talked about it. Like Bills and Dolphins. Who thought that Skylar Thompson was going to have a chance to win? Who thought that Tyler Huntley was going to have a chance to win? If he doesn't fumble on the 1-yard line, the Ravens could win that game. So it's a divisional game, Andrew. I know it's the Eagles are the better team, but man, you see a team a third time within 6 weeks. It's pretty crazy, don't you think?
Yeah, I think that it's the playoffs, man. Everybody, like last week, it's like nobody expected any of these games to be close, right? I mean, and also I want to mention this. I do think that being battle tested in general is a good thing. We'll talk about that in the next game we're about to break down. But I think that being battle tested in the playoffs and, for some teams, obviously for the Eagles, they deserve to have that week off. But for some teams, it's good to come off a very close game. It's good to come off a game that came down to the wire. I think it's better than coming off a game where you blew out your opponent in the first round of the playoffs. It's hard to replicate game stuff in practice, and they don't really do much heavy stuff in practice during the playoffs in general. And I don't know, I just think you go into games a little bit lighter. So I don't think I see any problem with that kind of stuff. And I think it kind of reflects things. But as far as this game's concerned, I gotta say, I love what you're doing there with taking the Giants. I like how you said you're protecting your heart. And of course, when you do prop bets, the best part about it is you can still make, you could take all kinds of props in the Giants, Mac, and you can still make money and your Eagles could still win. It happens to me all the time. Nothing worse than when you bet against your own team, but especially with the prop betting market as well, even if you bet the props, hey, those props could still hit, but your favorite team could still win.
Yeah, and certainly, so that's kind of our look at the Eagles and the Giants. Now we head to Sunday, and of course, the obvious circumstances surrounding the first time this meeting happened, there was just a little bit of data. There was, a drive by each team, and then it was the Bengals who had the ball once again before the unfortunate incident with Damar Hamlin. So we've seen this game somewhat, and we just haven't, don't have a lot of information from it. But now also the scene shifts to Buffalo. Once again, snow and rain are in the forecast. Who knows how much? It's not apparently it's not going to be that much. But what do you think about this one? Everybody's going to expect a lot of points here. It's the Bills. It's the Bengals. What are you thinking for this one, Andrew?
It's exciting. This is a big game that I can't wait to watch. It's a game that everyone's expecting to be a high scoring affair, with everyone coming out to have big performances. And I think that number one, the first thing that stuck out to me, and we've talked about this guy all year long. This isn't a shocker to anybody, but Joe Mixon, right? Looking at not just rushing, but also rushing and receiving. What's the talk of the town right now? The battle of the trenches, the Bengals offensive line. Would not surprise me to see Joe Burrow just dumping it off, couple yard toss and letting Mixon do the rest. I think that this is whether it's running or it's a short pass, I think we're going to see lots of those, especially early in the game. Everyone keeps talking about the battle in the trenches, and that's going to definitely be a difference. Take a look at this game for Dawson Knox, anytime touchdown scorer. He's done really, really well. He's been a huge end zone threat. And honestly, if you were a Diggs touchdown scorer better last week, you were pulling your hair out because it seemed like everybody was getting in the end zone but him. And I think that when you're looking at this Bills team, you're almost better off looking at the depth, looking at the nice plus prices because they have so many weapons in there. And Knox is a real, real big guy. There's lots and lots of threats for him. And I wanted to ask you about, the number one guy versus number two guy or three guy. Last year in the playoffs, I looked at all the time at the number two option, the guys like T. Higgins, someone that I talked about a lot more than Jamar Chase, someone that's going to be covered a lot of attention on him. But hey, with the chemistry that Burrow seems to have with him, that doesn't really seem to matter. But I was looking at his over. But there's a lot to discuss with this team, and also it's hard for me not to look towards Josh Allen over on his passing yards. But when you look down the depth chart, like Boyd and stuff like that, are you interested in looking at these number one guys? Like, do you see what happened last week with Diggs in the first quarter? The guy had like 80 yards in the first quarter and pretty much disappears in the second half. Is that worrisome for you if you're looking at some props like that?
Yeah, I don't like the tax you pay for the number one guys. Obviously, last week we basically said, "Oh, Justin Jefferson's going to have a great game last week," and of course he had a terrible game and against the Giants. So, like, I feel like you pay a tax here. I actually like Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd, the slot receiver for the Bengals. I believe he had a catch because I think I was actually on Tyler Boyd on that Monday night game, and he had a catch in the first drive. If you're going to play the Bills slot corner is Teron Johnson. He's not very good, at least considering what they've got in the outside, and considering Tre'Davious White may follow Jamar Chase. I think that opens up some things elsewhere. And then, of course, Gabe Davis. It's the playoffs, so naturally Gabe Davis shows up for Buffalo. So, like, I do think there's some value on the supplemental guys, and sometimes I even like going to the fourth guy or the fifth guy if I see some sort of value there. So it's almost like these books put up the numbers for all the players. And sometimes it's just like, nobody's going to take so-and-so. Nobody's going to touch, Samaje Perine or things like that. So we could just hang a loose number there.
I wanted to ask you something because my buddy said to me that every week it seems like I like the Josh Allen rushing prop over. And for a long time, it was really successful, Matt. Of course, he had his injury and there was part of the a little bit of a stretch where he wasn't getting on the go. He didn't have that in his arsenal. But I'll tell you what, it's one thing I've learned about these younger quarterbacks is that they refuse to throw the ball away. They aren't as good at it. Like they don't realize that, moving back 7 or 8 yards and getting sacked is actually worse than if you throw the ball away and go back to where you start. These young quarterbacks are very stubborn. And I've seen that a lot recently with Josh Allen. I think he ended up only with like 20 something rushing yards, but that was a game that started off, very lopsided and obviously ended up coming sort of down to the wire. But is this an opportunity where against a team like the Bengals in a game like this, that's expected to be a tight one, that we should see Josh Allen move? Like, I should see him, escape the pocket and have to, get on his feet, because he seems like a guy to me that is just not good when he's stressed right now. He's not good at throwing the ball away. I think he has to make these decisions quicker if he's going to leave and run the ball himself or he's going to throw the ball away. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I feel like he's either all or nothing. And when I say all or nothing, people are like, well, wait a second, that means zero. Like I'm just looking at his rushing now. There's like 10, there's 20, and then there's like 60 and there's 70. So like to me, he's either going to go way under or way over. I wish Joe Burrow was more mobile because I would take the over there because with all the offensive line injuries and that front line that the Buffalo Bills have, I feel like there's your opportunity for rushing. But Burrow is not very mobile. Last 4 games, 9, 10, 5, 8. You go back a little bit more, 10. So, like, if he was the one that had the number that was reasonable, I'd look his way. The other thing, real quick, I would say is field goals in this game. Both teams are trending towards a lot of field goals. Just make sure before kickoff, win situation, things like that. And that, but I think there's a chance. McPherson, we know, is a great kicker. Tyler Bass has been very good for Buffalo. So I think those guys might be worth a look here. All right, last game, Andrew. Cowboys and 49ers. And, of course, we continue with the same refrain of Brock Purdy can't keep looking good. He's a 7th-round pick. And then can Dak actually look good 2 games in a row? So what's your thoughts on this one between two powers in the NFL?
Yeah, Matt, I talked to you before the show about this. I was very disappointed with the best bet on the show last week that I gave out. I think I had a pretty good week on Prop It Up with my bets I gave out for some of the games, but unfortunately, I figured we would see, just a heavy run game, and we didn't really get that, So I had Brock Purdy under on his passing yards. He continues to impress. Look, this is the thing, right? You take a look at I know we're not handicapping the side in total, Matt. This is for a prop show, but you take a look at the Cowboys. This is a completely different team than what they faced last week, right? There was not much of a run threat that the Buccaneers were even showing. Tom Brady is not going to get on his feet. We know that his rushing yard prop is, a half a yard, like you've told me before. There's so many different weapons. I believe there were like 5 or 6 guys that rushed for the 49ers last week. I think I'm probably going to be looking all over rushing props for this 49ers team. It's a team I think that's going to make it very difficult, try and keep the ball out of the hands of Dak Prescott, a guy that I have to say looked pretty good, but I'm going to be honest with you. I'm probably going to go right back to him at minus 140 to throw an interception this week. As he was close a couple times, but he seemed to be in his zone last week. But this Niners defense is going to put some pressure on him that will make things a little bit different. But I got to keep it simple with a play that Megan Payton talked about on WagerTalk today, which is Schultz. I mean, this is a guy that's a big target. He's catching touchdowns as well. And he's a guy that's literally not catching these long, deep passes, but making himself, wide open, probably 8 to 10 yards away for Dak. And I think those are the kind of plays that the Cowboys are really going to need. And I talked about the rushing for the Niners, but do they continue to set this number a little bit too low with Pollard? I mean, is he a guy that we have to continue to look towards? Because that's just like the way that he's able to gather these big plays and the way he's able to break off is something that they're going to have to count on. I think it's something that's definitely worth a look. And one thing I wanted to mention to you as well, T.Y. Hilton. What do you think about this guy, man? This guy is a guy that he's been around for a while. He's someone that's made plays for a long time. His prop bets are never really that high at all. He's someone that might be worth a look, and also Gallup. I mean, Gallup is a guy that his number isn't too high. You talked about it, Matt, about in some of these games. I mean, if I'm looking at Cowboys props this week, I don't know if I want to look at CeeDee Lamb. I think I want to look at everybody but him. I want to look further down. I want to get guys that are more in the 30s or 40s for their receiving yards. But I think it's a really good game to break down. I think you take a look at, just really down the list at the different running backs that they have to offer. Elijah Mitchell, there's just too many guys that I think the Niners are going to throw at the Cowboys that, like, do you even think the Niners played a great game last week? That's the thing. I don't even think they played a great game last week, and they can improve off it. And the Cowboys almost played a perfect game against that Buccaneers defense.
Yeah, the Debo prop looks tantalizing at rushing, 14.5 yards. He went over his rushing prop last week, I think, on his first carry. against Seattle. So I think that's interesting. And they've made it's hilarious how low Zeke is. 34.5 is what I'm
Yeah.
looking at now. I think it was 39.5 when it first came out. So everybody is taking the under. And of course, the 49ers are very good against the run. So it's just crazy. But then, you know what happened, Andrew, at the end of that game last week when they were kind of putting things away? Zeke was the running back who was in. It's not even like it was Malik Smith or any of their like third string guys. Zeke was the guy who was running out the clock here. So it's just,
He's the
I
garbage
like the
time guy
under.
now.
Exactly. I like the under, but I liked it at the original number. I think there's no value now for Zeke. The only thing you could do potentially is look at his rushing and receiving under, but it's 42.5. So like it's not even because he's not a receiving threat for the most part. So I just it's pretty crazy what's happened to Zeke. And then I'll bring up the kickers, and obviously there is no kicker prop, but I'll just tell you this, Andrew, if I was on anything involving points and Brett Maher last week, I would have quit gambling. 4 missed extra points. That's insane considering there was probably 2.5 and a reasonable juice on the over, and he missed 4 extra points. So obviously there's nothing involving him up, but that's something else you want to consider. I've actually seen some books, Andrew, offer will he miss a PAT, with the yes being an overwhelming, like plus 300 or something like that.
When you send that message to our group chat on Twitter there, I just said to myself, like, I don't know what I don't think I ever would have bet kicking props again if I was dealing with that. And then, of course, you've got Dak Prescott on the bench saying, let's just go for two. Let's start going for two. Why are we even kicking the ball? And that'd be the worst feeling if you had that. But, you kind of got me on those extra point props. And as much as I know I've talked about the over 3.5 or the longest field goal prop. I do think that you have a really good call there with singling out one player for their kicking points because number one, you can just score those off extra points, but also you're never really out of it as much with those. I really like those with kicking props, and especially maybe it's a revenge week for the guy. They're going to need him quite a bit.
Yeah, and certainly. The case in point here is like I'm looking on DraftKings. The 49ers to score over 2.5 touchdowns, minus 170. Robbie Gould to kick over 2.5 extra points is minus 125. Now, obviously, there's situations where they could go for two, but it's just one of those ways to kind of get around what Vegas wants you to bet or is preventing you from betting, but still kind of along the same line. So that's let's do this real quick because obviously we're going a little long, Andrew, which is fine because obviously we want to get into the playoffs a little bit. So let's shorten this up a little bit. Most passing yards for the weekend, Andrew. There's obviously some potential here. Mahomes is your favorite at plus 230. Is anybody going to beat him this weekend?
I don't see why we can't look at Josh Allen plus 475. I mean, I think that this is a team that is going to run the ball a little bit, but I think we didn't see the best Josh Allen last week. And I mentioned it a couple minutes ago that adversity is good. Going through a speed bump is a good thing. Taking a look at coming in a little bit battle tested. Maybe people didn't expect him to be battle tested last week against Skylar Thompson, but that he was. And guess what? He had a pretty rough game. He didn't play his best. And this could be the Stephon Diggs show with Josh Allen. And at that price, I wouldn't mind putting a little wager on it.
I wish I had the gump to be able to take Trevor Lawrence at 9-1 to outduel Patrick Mahomes. I don't see it. I think Mahomes wins. Rushing yards, most
You're
rushing
not
yards.
interested in
Surprising.
Daniel Jones at 12-1.
I'm going to pretend like you didn't say that there, Andrew. Most rushing yards, 5-1. Travis Etienne is your leader. Saquon Barkley plus 550, the number 2, and then Miles Sanders at plus 600. Obviously there's some value here potentially, but who could it be with?
I gotta say Christian McCaffrey. I just think that I don't know if the Cowboys are going to be able to handle what he has, and I think that in the first quarter we could see him pile a bunch of yards in. And the only thing that would worry me is kind of what I talked about a few minutes ago, that there's just a lot of guys that run the ball for that team, which could take away some yardage for him. A lot of times when you look at these weekly special props, you probably do want to look at someone that's going to consistently get those carries or lots of catches. But I'd say him. I think there's a good price on it. And I feel like in the first half, he's going to do a ton of damage.
To me, if I was to go against the favorite, which I don't think APN's going to win, it's Hurts or Daniel Jones. I think one of those guys is going to have a huge game potentially. I hope it's Hurts, obviously,
Oh,
but
wow.
10-1 for Hurts and 14-1 for Daniel Jones. 14-1 for your guy Josh Allen. That's potentially it. And then, of course, Andrew, most receiving yards for the weekend, the overwhelming favorite. Jamar Chase at plus 380, then Travis Kelce and Stephon Diggs and CeeDee Lamb at 7-1. Where do you think the value might be here?
Give me Travis Kelce 7-1. Like I said, I think he's going to have a field day against this Jacksonville Jags secondary. I don't think they're going to be able to hang with him. He's a big target. He shows up in the playoffs. He has that chemistry with Mahomes, obviously, for several years. And hey, I think it's one of those good ideas as well. If you like a guy like that, you don't want to just load up on receptions or receiving yards or anytime touchdown scores. This is a 7-1 price here that's definitely worth a look.
I would say, playoff Gabriel Davis, 20-1. I mean, listen, 2
Wow.
receptions for that guy is like 100 yards. That's 20-1 is not bad. I mean, obviously, look, if you're going to play these props, you just sprinkle on them. You put like a quarter of a unit, something on it, especially if you're going to go against the grain. These are not bets that you're going to put massive amounts of money on. You just want to have some fun. So if we're going to have some fun here, why not go Gabe Davis at 20-1? All right, so that's our NFL coverage. This weekend, there is a big UFC event, so I will let Andrew give us some winners there.
Yeah, just really quick, just one play I wanted to give out, and it's more of just a totals type play. I've looked at on this show a fight to go the distance, a fight not to go the distance. I want to look at the main event here with Glover Teixeira versus Jamal Hill. I wanted to go under 1.5 rounds. This is a fight with two guys that I would probably use the word reckless, Matt. Two guys that are going to come out firing, come out swinging right away. Jamal Hill has knocked out several fighters in a row. Teixeira has been involved in a lot of big, exciting firework type fights. He also is a specialist on the ground as well. And the only loss we've seen as far as the pro ranks are concerned here for Jamal Hill has been being submitted, and that was early in a fight. I think this one is over in the first round. And no matter what happens, I think we're going to see them clashing right away. I don't see them feeling things out. I don't see any conservativeness. You take a look at Teixeira with how many fights he's taken in the past year and a half, how busy and active he's been. That can definitely wear on you. And Jamal Hill, he's a shooter. He looks for that knockout, looks for that quick punch. And that gives you the first round and 2 minutes and 30 seconds into the second one here in a main event. And a lot of these main events recently, Matt, have gone to the distance. They've been longer fights, but this one here should see fireworks, and the numbers certainly back it up here.
And just locked it in on BetMGM at even money. So a good price for something like that. All right, Andrew, tell everybody what they can find on your page for this weekend.
Yeah, I just want to stress that week 6-9 promo code week 6-9 for $69 for 1 week of all access plays. Running pretty hot right now in the NHL. Cashed a 5% pick yesterday. Got a 5% going in the NFL this weekend. And of course, a really, really big play in the UFC. So did really, really well last year with 5% plays in the UFC. Hoping to start things off with a bang in 2023. And I just recommend people look at these week-long packages or 3-day-long packages. It saves people money, and they get a lot more plays. Same thing I'm doing right now, doing tennis, college basketball, low volume, NBA props, low volume, NHL consistently. We got UFC. There's so much stuff going on. And, of course, I'm going to have so much NFL action on Sunday. So check that out, week 6-9.
And Andy's got a 5% NFL play, a 5% UFC play, and as we say, when Andy slaps a 5 on something, he means business, and it means profits for you most likely. Make sure to check him out at WagerTalk.com. He's been doing great work as always, and make sure to follow him on Twitter at Bump Sports. I am Mid-Major Matt on Sports Memo. We'll have some college basketball this weekend. Already put up my Eagles-Giants prop pack for Saturday. And certainly you'll want to check that out on sportsmemo.com. All right, the best bet of the show. And once again, like this is one of these, obviously the guys give out a lot of best bets on the show, and they're, bigger bets. This is one of these like sprinkle bets, and it's a fun bet because it's something that I don't think a lot of people necessarily look at. So like, I'm not telling you to put the mortgage on it. I'm not telling you to put like a massive amount. Boston Scott anytime touchdown. Shop around. I just saw plus 360s. There's a lot of plus 350s or above. If you want a slight difference on the juice and everything like that, make sure to shop around. Quite simply, Boston Scott has 17 touchdowns in his career, 10 of them against the Giants. Nick Sirianni is one of those guys that certainly knows sort of things like this. It feeds into the narrative. All the Eagles fans put this bet down every time. As I said, it's not a big bet. It's one of these sprinkle type bets, but Boston Scott kind of owns the Giants, and we know that Sirianni is a guy who rotates his running backs. It's a Miles Sanders thing. Occasionally he'll throw Kenny Gainwell out there. Boston Scott will be out there. So play along with the trends here. 10 of 17 touchdowns for Boston Scott in his career have come against the Giants. So why not one in the playoffs? Boston Scott anytime touchdown for the prop of the week. Once again, you could find Andy Lang and Andrew McGinnis on WagerTalk.com. I am on SportsMemo.com. We will be back next week as we get closer to the end of the NFL season. Once again, you've been watching Prop It Up on the WagerTalk YouTube channel.
College football is over, the NFL is winding down, and as we turn our attention to the ice and hardwood until Sunday, January 22nd, we are slashing NBA, college basketball, and NHL season passes from $4.59 all the way down to $2.99 with no coupon needed. This special price locks in your favorite handicappers in the sport of your choice through the championship for pennies on the dollar versus buying daily packages. And since the price will remain $2.99 through midnight on January 22nd, the earlier you buy, the more days you get included at no additional cost. How much are you saving? College basketball comes to just $3.55 per day through March Madness, and the NBA and NHL discounts come out to just under $60 per month to lock in your favorite handicapper through the finals or Stanley Cup. Go to your favorite handicappers page at WagerTalk and or Sports Memo and lock in your sports through the championship for only $2.99 each. If you want to combine handicappers or multiple sports, email us and we can work out an even more significant discount for you.